Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. It's 2 o'clock and we will get started with our open agenda. Thank you for those attending and thank you to the guests that have joined us. I would first like to recognize that we are on the traditional territories of the Niklamac, Secwepemc, and the Shtutliam peoples, and we truly appreciate living on their lands, learning from their lands, and feeling from the heart. Thank you very much. Do we have anything for public forum? Nope. Okay, thank you. I forgot to ask earlier. Thank you. So we will do the approval of the agenda. Can I just for 1 minute, Jill, can I get you to just take down the agenda just so I can see a show of hands for the agenda approvals and minutes? Thank you. So approval of agenda. Can I get a motion, please, to accept them? Vicky and Carmen seconded. I would also like to add an item, 7.1011. It will be a conversation around the wearing of masks. Thank you. And all in favor, I think that was the only one I had to add, yes. And all in favor?
Sorry, do you need it seconded for your addition?
I'm not sure if I do or not, because Carmen already had seconded it, so I was waiting to see if Carmen was going to accept the whole thing or not.
Okay. Well, I second the amended agenda.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Sit down. Approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a mover, please? Anybody? Donna? Vicky? And I just realized we lost Aura again there. Oh, there she's up there. Oh, sorry, Aura. I see your hand up there. And any comments or concerns about it? No? Okay, Aura seconded, I believe. Yes, Vicky?
Is this the time where I talk or ask about one of the things?
Yes, yeah? It is.
Okay. I just wanted to know. Oh, no, never mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns? Or any information needed? No? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And Aura, I'm going to just presume that you're in favor unless I hear otherwise. Thank you. That'll save you up and down with the hand. Presentation. The Superintendent of Schools will provide a presentation on Gold Trails 2019-2020 completion rates. Please, Yes, superintendent. Not used to that word.
So hopefully everyone is able to see the slideshow. Are you able to see it where you are? Very good.
Yes.
Hopefully your view has it so that that's what you see dominantly in your screen. All right, thank you so very much for the opportunity to present to you on last year's completion data. I first want to acknowledge that this data is coming to the Board of Education later than normal, and that is a result of the fact that this information was released publicly later due to the provincial election this year. So this, just in February, the 6-year completion rate was released for Gold Trail School District and all 60 school districts across the province. What you have here is, a rolling tabulation of Gold Trail's completion rate. And just want to take a moment to share with you what this is. So first thing is this slide is showing you the 6-year completion rate, which looks at students from the year of graduation for the past, all the students who started in that cohort that would have been in grade 8 or entered Gold Trail in any years since, and allows for those students who would have completed during 5 years of school or 6 years. In the graph, you see at the top of each of those numbers a black number and then a colored number. The black number reflects the data that is released by the provincial government and the Ministry of Education, and the colored number underneath reflects Gold Trail's perspective of our actual completion rate, actually after we do a review of the data that the Ministry of Education said were our non-completers, or those students we were responsible for that did not graduate, and we do a deep review into that information. So when we received this information, I'll be honest, there was deep panic and worry, and there continues to be, because we don't see all students, we don't see our numbers at 100%. But the data that was provided for the 1920 school year was concerning, as we saw what we feared was a 2-year decline for students in the completion rate. And the district will show you in upcoming slides that actually that is not the case, and that from our perspective, once again, Gold Trail has been penalized by the way that the ministry represents completion data and their refusal to actually amend the data once we're able to show and demonstrate how the data was not correct. So for the 1920 school year, the Ministry of Education indicated that we had 20 students from that cohort that did not graduate. So our process here in the district is, once we get the names of non-completers, we connect with each of the schools where those students were last registered and ask them for a status update. And one of the best realities of being a small school district is that we are able to receive that information very quickly from school principals who know exactly the status of these students. So of those 20 students, 4 moved out of the province between the time they registered and graduation. 3 moved out of Gold Trail, 4 students actually graduated with a dogwood degree, and 2 students received an evergreen degree. Now, it's important to note that we are very mindful that across the province, there are organizations that are deeply and understandably concerned about students who receive an evergreen degree and what that says or means. I can share with the Board of Education that both students who received an evergreen degree last year were students for whom both the parent and the superintendent of schools approved that that was the appropriate completion track for that student due to their cognitive challenges. So out of those students alone, so our rates reflected 20 students that didn't graduate. And when you look at the numbers there, from our perspective, 7 students did not graduate, and 7 students, absolutely, we have responsibility for and care for moving forward. But we are concerned that the 13 gives a negative implication of the work happening in this school district and what an education means in Gold Trail. So the 4 students who left the province, when a student leaves the province, they just come up as a non-completer, even though we really have no sphere of control or influence on their education. The 3 students who moved out of Gold Trail, they didn't register with another school, their records were not requested, or they potentially went to a private school that does not engage in our system. And for students who graduated, I think was probably our there was some frustrated conversations here at the office around that being an implication. Those students, that information was caught in July and it was fixed, and it still was not adapted or put in for our graduation data. So here you can see there more clearly what that colored number means in our school district, because this is a process we go through, and I know the board is well aware of, because you see this every year. Every single year we do this. The piece that I think out of all the data staff are most pleased about is that year after year, we are seeing fewer non-grads. So we've, in recent years, last year, the year before was 13, and we were down to 7. Now I look forward to the year when there are 0 non-grads, but schools are working and connecting with those families and those students to know, so that they know that we are still a place that is open for them. We would like to support them, whether it is with a Dogwood degree or an adult degree, to support them as they move forward as learners. So here now is our actual completion rate when you take that information into consideration. So all students is actually 90%. Indigenous male learners, 80%. Non-Indigenous males, 100%. Indigenous females, I do want to comment on why you see that decline. And I think that's a reflection of part of the challenge with the provincial completion rate. So you see we went from 88% to 86%. That is a reflection of the fact that the Ministry of Education uses an algorithm when they produce both the provincial and school district completion rates. It's not actually student count. And so really we went from 83% to 86%. And then non-Indigenous females went from 76% to 100%. For us as an organization, this tells us that, a small school district with small numbers are negatively penalized when there are 1 or 2 differences in the data, but it also continues to show the disparity in achievement between Indigenous learners and non-Indigenous learners in this school district, and the need for a continued focus to address personal and systemic racism in our system and the expectations we have for all learners.
Teresa, I see Donna's got her hand up. Is there?
Excellent. That's
Thank
perfect, because this was question time.
Oh, okay. Oh, good.
Great. Trustee Alja.
Thank you, Teresa. Just going back to the graduation list that you had, the 20, right? Going back to that itself, this is where I find parents having such a hard time with this as well, too, as well as other companies that these students are applying for in other companies, where they ask if you've got a graduate degree or not, and then they show this, and then it comes back to them. It's not their fault, but it comes back to them and says, well, technically this is not a qualifying degree. So after all that, of emotions, graduation, yeah, and then trying to get to a company that says you need a graduate degree, and they show these, and then even here it says it's not even qualified as a graduate, right? So I'm just wondering, how can we work with the students in regards to that, to bring them up, or at least make it straight across the board, this is your graduate qualifications.
Yeah, Trustee Aljam, you surface a significant issue. So there are 3 ways a student can graduate from BC public schools. The first is with a Dogwood degree, which is the traditional, and I think what everyone thinks of when you hear graduation. The second is an adult, and I think that might be the one that you're surfacing the most. So an adult degree is one that has a difference in the requirement of criteria and credits to graduate, and you're only eligible once you're 19 years of age. There are times when that has an impact on someone after graduation. Sometimes when it comes to work, I know at Highland Valley Copper Mine, it is certainly the request that it is a Dogwood degree, not an adult degree. So Absolutely. And we work hard. And I've been in many conversations when a student wants to go on an adult path and we could potentially be at the point of losing them. And you know, they want to do an adult because they're going to get out with something. And it's a very difficult conversation. And we try to present what the implications are. But we have often sought nothing or an adult. We will likely each time choose adult. An evergreen is a very different mode of graduation. This is for learners who have significant cognitive challenges that have been diagnosed by a complex and comprehensive medical team. And these are students for whom a dogwood is not an option, but there is the desire to acknowledge that they deserve recognition for their time in our system. And both a child's parents and myself have to sign off and approve that a child's on an evergreen path, and that is part of the conversation of that approval process. It is complex and I think quite confusing for families, you're right.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just, you know, such a headache when not only tech, but other companies like tech, BC Hydro and such, that they hit this brick wall in regards to just that specific wording, right? So I'm just hoping that we can work with them and try and get them past this so that they all qualify to graduate.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions for Teresa? Superintendent Downs, I should say. Okay, seeing none. Teresa, oh, no, sorry. Okay, our trustee Terrell. I'm trying to be official.
It's fine. I wondered, it doesn't look like it from the data, if there was an effect on graduation at all because of the pandemic shutdown.
Now, we have not yet seen that. I anticipate we may see that in the next 2 to 3 years, Trustee Trill.
Thank you. Carmen, I see your hand. Your hand is a different color. That's why I don't see it much because it's very pale.
Okay, so am I correct in remembering that we have tried to encourage the ministry to be kind of less erroneous in their data that they reflect for our district? I think we had a letter from the board at one point a year or two ago, and how are those it sounds like there's still a roadblock about this, and it does make life difficult because the reportings online that people can see about us through different sources like the ministry rather than our own sources, people will get a bad idea about us. And I think that this level of inaccuracy that can be proven, it really needs to be corrected so that when someone's looking up Gold Trail, that they see the real data. So what do you think we can do about that? That's my question.
Yeah. I do remember the letter that the Board of Education sent. There was no, substantive follow-up with staff. Certainly, I don't remember any with the board. It is challenging because, there were a number of times this fall where data sets from the Ministry of Education were continually updated and resent to district staff, but that graduation can't be the same. We have, as staff, superintendents and secretary treasurers, when we meet with the ministry, we've asked if preliminary data could be sent to us, if we could kind of fact check it and send it to them for validation and before it's published and released. And there doesn't appear to be a desire for that. And so it is challenging. And so I think as staff, we would certainly appreciate any advocacy that the board does in this area, because it does impact the reputation of the school district, unfortunately.
I think we should write another letter and possibly even include your scenarios as to how it could be fixed, and maybe just a little bit stronger wording, and let them know how how much they are impacting our district.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Vicki. All
I
in
would
favor? Oh,
like
go
to-
ahead.
Sorry, in discussion of the motion, I don't know if anybody else needs to go before me. Maybe you want to, Nancy.
No, that was fine. That was what I was going to say. So no,
I
go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I just should have raised my hand again. I in support of the letter. I'm totally in support of this. I think that we should request a meeting with the minister about it, because we have sent this before. This isn't our first time, and I think that needs to be in the letter. The fact that it's not our first letter on that we're still experiencing pain and suffering on multitude of levels. Public opinion optics are important to our district, because rural districts have, in my opinion, have to have a louder voice when it comes to kind of these bullying issues, for bullying for being small. We're being bullied and misrepresented in it. And I really, I feel it's a rural issue because of our size. I mean, it would not impact a larger district to the same extent. So I'm just kind of blurting out ideas for the letter. Forgive me. Thank you for the idea about the letter.
Thank you, Carmen. Larry?
Yes, and I would like to as well emphasize that we are a school district with a large Indigenous student population, and many of those 13 or 7 members are likely Indigenous, and so we really need to use that leverage in this letter. So yeah, thanks for that.
Good idea. Thanks, Larry. Okay. All in favor of sending this letter? Thank you. Teresa, was there any more to your presentation? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And we will move now to 7.1, year-to-date financial information. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the February 28, 21 year-to-date financial information as presented. Can I get a mover? Donna, thank you. And we will have Steve presenting.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, so we'll start with the first page. This is the highlights. This just shows a brief highlight of all the schedules that we will be going through. So let's go to the next page, please. So this is statement 1. So this is showing the combined revenue and expenses for all of our operating, special purpose funds, and capital fund. As I go through the presentation, I'll kind of give you more of an update on these operating, special purpose, and capital fund. So we go to the next page, please. Okay, so Schedule 2, this is the operating fund, everything in Schedule 2. We're looking at operating revenue of $21.2 million and expenses of $19.3 million. So we have a net revenue of about $1.8 million. With that net revenue, there's $35,000 that is for an operations vehicle. And then we're looking at transferring $1.7 million to local capital. So after all that, we're looking at an operating surplus of roughly $97,000. Next page. So Schedule 2A, so this is a breakdown of the operating revenue. It's fairly consistent with the amended budget. No real changes right now. And go to the next page. So Schedule 2B, this is showing a breakdown of the operating expenses by salaries and benefits, and then services and supplies and utilities. This again will match with Schedule 2. Next page, please. So this is the operating revenue again it's by department. So again, the forecast expenses of $19.3 million is able to match with Schedule 2. And like I said, the variances are all fairly minimum with the amended budget. Okay, next page. So this is showing the FAPEC budget and expenses for the schools and the language program and administration. If you look at the percentage of budget remaining, so as of February 28th, those are the amounts, the percentage remaining for each of the schools. Okay, next page, please. Keep on going, next page. Okay, and this one here, oh, special purpose funds, okay. Schedule 3 and Schedule 3A is the special purpose funds. So this is Schedule 3 here, and this is showing a summary of Schedule 3A, showing a revenue of $2.2 million roughly, and then it's about $1.9 million, and then another $70,000 for capital assets purchases. If we go to the next page. So Schedule 3A, these are showing a more detail of all the special purpose grants that we received. And if you go to the next page and one more. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, we had the beginning balance was about $506,000. And then at the end of the year, we're looking at around $357,000 being the ending balance for the special purpose funds. Next page, please. Schedule 4, so this is the capital, local capital balance of, so the middle row is the local capital. There's the $1.7 million that we're transferring to local capital. And then we're projecting about $3.25 million we're going to be spending from local capital. And next page, please. Okay, so again, here is the local capital balance at the end, projected to be at the end of the year. Is it about $4.8 million? Sorry, I can't quite read that. Sorry, so okay, so local capital balance at the end of the year is about $4.5 million. And then with the bylaw capital in the middle there, the remaining, we have the first row is the grants that we received for the bylaw capital, and the middle row of that is expenses, and the end row is the remaining balance. So we are projecting the remaining balances will all be spent as of June 30th. Okay, next page. And then this final page just shows the trustees Pro D balance. And that is what I have for the year to date. I'm not too sure if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Steve? Vicky?
Thanks, Steve. Just if we can go back to statement 2, the very first one with the everything all in one. I see that this is to the end of February, so we have about 4 months left to go with the budget. The column on the left says actual, so does that mean actual to the end of February 28th?
With the actual expenses are into the end of February 28th, but we've also have the projections from March to June in here.
Okay, that's where I was confused because I thought, wow, it looks like we've spent everything and we still have another 4 months to go. How is that going to work? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you're projecting, I think you said it in here, but can you just remind me, what is it, 10% per month of the what you had budgeted? Is that what you add to your for your projections?
Oh, sorry, say that again, sorry.
How do you project the last 4 months? Was it 10% per month of the amended budget, or what is it?
When I do my projections, like I look at like wages, for example, I'm going to be looking at similar wages for the last 3 months. So I kind of put that in for March to June. It's not really 10%, but I'm kind of looking at expenses and then projecting it for the remaining months.
Okay, just based on the history.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just wondering, with special purpose funds, of course, that's all the way at the other end of this report. Is there a timeline? I noticed that there was $500,000 in deferred funds from the previous year, but are there any special purpose funds that have a timeline that has to be spent? Like you mentioned, the capital will be spent by the end of June. Are there any others that are like that?
For the special purpose funds, the ones that have to be spent for the end of June is the federal safe return to class and the provincial safe return to schools. Those two have to be spent by June from what we've heard last from the ministry. And then the remaining grants, they can be carried forward.
Okay, good. Because it looks like there's all kinds of fun things after school and trips and all of that. And I noticed too that the school generated funds, it's been more challenging for people to spend it. And I was hoping that the schools would have that when they come back to more normal times. So that's good to hear. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Does anybody else have any questions for Steve? Scrolling through my hand list. No. Sorry, I'm on no wonder I can't move that one. I'm on the wrong computer. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on my agenda here. Okay. So can I get a seconder for that? I forgot to get a seconder for the approval of the February 28th, 2021 year-to-date financial information as presented. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Carmen. And all in favor? Hoping hands are up because I'm running through. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vicki. 7.2 revised 2021-2022 district calendar. The recommendation that the Board of Education approve the revised 2021-2022 district calendar. Can I get a move, please?
Carmen.
Carmen, and a seconder, please. Vicki, thank you. And discussion, Teresa, or for Superintendent Downs?
Oh, good. Thank you very much. This is before the board. You did approve this calendar on March 6, 2018, but the Regional Professional Development Day has been changed. They have now established that it will be the Friday before the Family Day long weekend. So if the board approves, it's to move that day from February 25th to February 18th for this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Any questions? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Policy 2.50, accumulated operating surplus monitoring. Recommendation that the Board of Education adopt policy 2.50, accumulated operating surplus as presented.
Moved.
Vicki, thank you. A seconder? Barry, thank you. Any discussion? I don't see any hands up. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Well, I do prefer the all in favor as to oppose, because I don't like that negative. Policy 4.50, Parents Advisory Councils. Recommendation that the Board of Education adopt policy 4.50, Parents Advisory Councils as presented. Mover, please. Larry, thank you. Seconder, Donna, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all approved? Okay, thank you. 7.5, policy 4.60, childcare. It's recommended that policy 4.60, childcare, be distributed for public feedback and brought back to May Policy Committee for further discussion.
So moved.
Thank you, Vicky. Second. Donna, thank you. Do we want discussion on that? Carmen, thank you.
I think this would be a good one to seek public feedback on through our process, the feedback, because it's new, correct?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion? Okay, we'll bring that back to May Policy Committee after it's been gone up to public feedback. Oh, got to. All approved? Thank you. .6, policy 1.120, Superintendent of Schools and Secretary Treasurer roles and responsibilities. This policy requires a review due to the change in district leadership structure. Recommendation that policy 1.120, Superintendent of Schools and Secretary Treasurer roles and responsibilities, be forwarded to the May Policy Committee meeting for review. Mover, please.
Can we get the screen moved up, please?
There's no attachment for this item.
I'll move that, Trustee Ranta.
Thank you. Second. Vicky, thank you. All in favor? Or any discussion, I should say, sorry. No? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. 7.7, review 2021-2022 preliminary budget. The Secretary Treasurer will present the 2021-2022 preliminary budget for discussion. And welcome, Trudy, to your first presentation to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rampel. So this is not the time to give your new Secretary Treasurer a hard time. So let's be clear about that right from the outset. So if I don't know anything, I can't answer your questions, there's a couple more times for you to look at this. So this is the draft, you'll look at it again in May, and then it comes back to June for approval. So there's a couple of different times to look at this. So this is the first kick at the can, so to speak. So there were some increases this year as a result of the minister making some announcements. So we have some increases to some basic supplement rates. So not a whole lot of exciting numbers there. And a lot of it had to do with enrollment. And so here's your enrollment trends, just a quick look at what's been happening. So you can go to the next one, please, Jill. So I wanted to go through the grants. Now, the income or the grants chart and the expense chart, you will notice will look probably very similar to last year's and the year before and the year before that, because this jurisdiction has very, very stable funding, which is a lovely thing for your new Secretary Treasurer. No surprises. There will be some sort of adjustments, 1 or 2% perhaps, but when we look at this operating revenue, you have to realize that there are there's some grants that are missing because they haven't been announced yet. So this chart may change slightly as we move forward into June, but very basically, it's very, very similar to last year's and the year before. And really the huge piece is 88% is your operating grant from the federal government. Provincial government, I don't know, federal government on my brain. So what you saw, the first slide was the percentage, and here's the actual dollars. And as you can see between last year and this year, very, very, very similar. 18 million operating grant from the provincial government and very small bits and pieces to fill up the rest. So about another $3 million other than operating grants from various other organizations, miscellaneous investment income, that sort of thing. Next slide, please, Jill. So here you see the percentages of the expenses, and of course, really salaries, teachers, principals, EA support staff, other professionals, substitutes, benefits. There you have that's your 100% of your salaries and benefits, which is the bulk of your budget. Okay, Jill, next page, please. And here's your dollars, mostly to teachers, 6 million, and then odds and sods throughout the rest of the categories. And again, very, very similar to last year's. So the only sort of two pieces when we go into operating expenses that you'll notice a change is from between last year and this year. So last year, we budgeted probably more in cleaning supplies and COVID relating cleaning. So that budget was slightly higher. We're still, we've adjusted it slightly because we're anticipating that some of it we're not going to have to do as much. But again, depending on what the province does, it's hard to know. So this year's cleaning will be slightly smaller than last year's. And on the flip side, the travel, you'll see an increase to travel from last year. So we're putting the travel budget slightly more than the year before because we're anticipating that COVID won't be such a big thing and that we'll be able to do some traveling this year. So as you see sorry, go back, Jill. Sorry. So salaries, as you can see, of a $20 million, 12 million is salaries, and benefits at another, I don't know, 3 million. So 15 million out of $20 million budget. So 75% of your budget is salaries and benefits, which is in line with the other divisions. Okay, keep going. All right. So there you go. Instruction is 73%. District admin is 7. Operation and maintenance is 13. And transportation is 7. And operation and maintenance, that's partly where you'll see perhaps some adjustment due to COVID. Okay, Jill, next one. And here's the services and supplies, which is roughly the other 25%, broken down. Services, 28%, utilities, 15%, and supplies are 39%. So those are your big pieces. Okay, Jill. Okay, here's your $21 million budget. So 19 of which is grants, 131 is other grants, and other revenue is 1.4 million. So you can see it's all grants, which is the way it's always been. And instruction, 14 million of the $19 million expenses. So net revenue of 1.4. We're projecting we're going to purchase about $20,000 worth of tangible capital assets, which leaves about almost 1.4 million to go back into local capital. And if you look back onto Steve's presentation, he was around that 1.4 million as well. So that seems to be a fairly common number that you're able to put back into essentially schools through capital projects. Okay, next page, Jill, please. Okay, so the question is, oh, sorry. So the capital fund, we haven't quite yet got the projects yet. We're waiting on Debbie to finish them up. And so that will be in your next presentation. Okay, Jill. So local capital. So as you remember, Steve mentioned that 4.5 million. So that's what your carry forward from this year is going to be. So we have kitchen renovations that we hadn't budgeted for. So it's going to be 200,000. And we've got some internal restrictions of almost 1.4. That $1 million you're going to get next month. So we're going to be keeping fairly basically the same. We're going to be opening the same amount with our capital budget as we did last year, 4.7 versus 4.5, which is good. Bylaw capital, this is $500,000 restricted capital, and this is from the sale of a building, one of the schools. So we've earmarked 470,000 roughly for the new Lillooet school. Okay, Jill, next. So projected budget surplus of 1.4. Would the board like to engage in a public survey about the allocation of surplus? Apparently this has happened in the past, so would you like to do it again?
Thank you, Trudy. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, Vicki has her hand up.
Yes. The question to
Three,
the
yes. Okay, we'll go back to the little pictures. So if I'm missing you, just wave your hand a little bit more. If you would like to give Trudy an answer, Carmen, please, and then Aura.
Thank you, Trudy. I really thought you did a great job. So very good. It was easy to understand. And I like the way you talked about previous years in the presentation. So thank you for that. Regarding public consultation, I think it's very important to provide the public with an opportunity to have a knowledge about our budget and an opportunity to tell us something about their thinking regarding the budget. I think it would be good to see what's out there as far as ideas go from the public. And as we're planning for that, I think the public would benefit from knowing some of the key facts that, basic key facts like the amount of money we spend on salaries, like the amount of money we spend on benefits, because that's a real eye opener when you think about school district budgeting, how much freedom we don't really have. And so I'm curious about what the public might like to see. And I also know that sometimes it's a good idea to provide a little framework about what the options might be. So, just, if I wasn't a school trustee and I didn't know all of the things that could occur, it might be nice to just provide a little hints about what might occur as far as spending that would support students better, or be kind of relevant for local communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Aura, I believe you were next. There you are.
I'm trying to unmute Jill, and not
Oh.
myself. Sorry. So yeah, I agree with Carmen. That's great, and I think that's good. That's a lot of information to distribute. So I'm just thinking in terms of a communication style or how we would present that to people. I know we will post it on our website and invite people to read that information and contribute there. But I often feel that that doesn't really generate an incredible amount of input from people. So just wondering if there's some other thoughts about how we could really engage people in the budget and what they might like to see.
Can I just suggest, we always send out the board bulletin, make sure that's one of the high topics on that board bulletin for local people to see, and maybe on our Facebook and Twitter pages. I know that's a lot of technical. If you want to put up a poster in your town, I don't know. Superintendent Downs, any other suggestions?
I think district staff will come together now that we know the board is interested in the survey and think of how we can best reach as many people as possible.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Storken.
I'm just wondering, would it be possible to run an ad in the local newspapers for the areas, the communities that have newspapers?
I'm not sure. I was actually waiting for Superintendent Downs, as she said they will be going back to, you can throw out some ideas and they can run them through. So, sure.
I'll note that. Thank you, Trustee.
Anybody else have any suggestions or comments?
Just getting very technical and operational here, but one thing that I do hear from the communities is enhanced types of, well, no complaints here at all, but the food program in the schools being beefed up or not beefed up with beef, but enhanced in some ways. And I'm not going to say how or anything, but it came up at FPAC. I think Donna mentioned it at FPAC, and I do feel that that would be something communities might like to provide feedback on, just getting very nitpicky, but I will avoid doing any more suggestions on it. But thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you, Carmen. I was just going to ask, maybe we'll leave the suggestions until later. Larry, you had your hand up?
Yes, I like the comments by Aura, and I also feel too that segments of our communities are more able or have the capacity to provide feedback on such a question. So I'm thinking if the staff have any ideas for the use of this fund, even going to other groups like the PEC, it'd be nice to provide some options as well to the community. But who knows, they might come out with one like Mount Bushry, where the students put forward one to have a 2-ply tissue paper for every washroom. Something that can be shared with everyone. So anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Larry. So just a quick question, Teresa, or Superintendent Downs. Will we, once district staff has decided how they're going to get this out there, will we be notified or will it just go out? Or I'm just curious as to if there's a process.
If the board would like for us to share what the communication plan is for that, we certainly can.
Please, thank you. I would like that for one.
Great.
Okay, Aura, you have your hand up? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great, Nancy. Never thought to ask that, but that, like, once I know, then I can start to distribute it in my own circles, you know, and sometimes I might miss it because I'm pretty busy or whatever. And my other thought or my other question was, can you please remind me how we as trustees get to contribute our ideas also for that money?
Trudy, do you or?
Oh, I was going to say, is that you or me, Teresa? My understanding is now and at the next budget, at the board meetings. That's my understanding, unless you want to email me or Teresa and just say, I have this great idea. I like 3-ply better. And you can do it that way too. So my understanding is it's the meetings and just email.
Perfect. Thank you, Trudy. It's taken me a minute to go back up and down through everybody's. Okay, so no more questions for Trudy. And Trudy, were you finished your presentation?
Sorry, I sort of jumped to that last slide. Were there any questions about the budget that anybody had?
As you can tell, everybody's just more interested in spending that extra money.
And numbers are not the most interesting sometimes.
They can be. Thank you. So there's no more further questions for Trudy. And Trudy, you were done. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, that was just a discussion piece. Okay, thank you. So moving on to 7.8, former Ashcroft Elementary School property, and follow up to the March board meeting. The Secretary Treasurer will provide information on the next steps in the proposal of the former Ashcroft Elementary School property. Thank you. And that would be Trudy again.
So this is the last time I'm speaking, I think, here. So we met with legal after the board meeting, and the lawyer suggested that we get sorry, my mind went blank there, an appraisal on the property, and took a look at an assessment of what, if there's any, I know we have, I can't talk right now. What's that? We have to remediate the school. Starts with an A.
Asbestos.
Thank you. I know we have asbestos in the school, but they wanted a report to make sure that there are no underground tanks or anything like that buried there. So we've ordered both reports. We're hoping to get them in April sometime. One was going to be 6 weeks. The other one is going to be 8 weeks. So we're hoping to get them at least by the next board meeting. And we're going to also share them with the lawyer that he'll give us some next steps. So you'll get the reports in next board meeting, fingers crossed if they get completed, and then we'll give you some next steps.
Thank you, Trudy. I would also like to ask, if possible, could we, since there is all this extra work going on, could we also look into the cost of rezoning and subdividing that property? It might not hurt, as community of Ashcroft, like many communities, are suffering from lack of housing when they're having an influx of people. That maybe that might be an option to us also. Do you need a motion or anything for that too, or can that just be added on to the?
I don't think you need a motion. I think we can just do it.
Okay, thank you. Aura?
Thanks. So yeah, my comments were again about the actual motion. So I'm just trying to be really clear and make sure I understand. The words that say to ensure that taxpayers and the board's interests are maintained in a disposal of the former Ashcroft Elementary School property. So I guess I'm just unclear. I don't know for sure what would be an instance where the taxpayers or the boards and the board's interests would not be maintained. So it reads to me that this says we have decided to support the disposal of this property for a nominal fee. But then the rest of the motion has an additional thought on it that says only if these interests can be maintained. So I'm just worried that that's unclear, and that perhaps the members of the hub, are not understanding it the way we are, or are we understanding it the way they are? So I don't know what everyone thinks about that.
Teresa or Trudy, did you want to explain any of that further? Oops,
Trudy's chuckling. I'm happy to. Or Trudy, would you prefer? Excellent. So I think we can share when we sought legal advice, the lawyer did feel that the intentions of the board were clear with that piece of the motion. And from the legal perspective, it was that whatever would be done with the property in the future after the disposal of it to the hub, that there would not be in the future a negative penalty to the Board of Education or taxpayers. So two examples that were put forward, and please know that these are not examples that we contemplate the hub doing, but the first would be that the hub decides to sell it and make a profit and go build another center somewhere else. So that would be one of the ways that the lawyer thought that the board would be seeking protection of their own interest and taxpayers' interest because it was purchased with taxpayer dollars. The other that is for consideration is what would be potentially done or how that land could be zoned. So they didn't think that potentially, I know this is being videoed, but potentially a business was set up within that site that would not align to the values of a public education system or taxpayer dollars. And so what are the provisions that would be put in the sale that would ensure that taxpayers and the Board of Education's financial interests and reputation were maintained through the sale? Those were the sorts of things that the lawyer understood to be part of this motion. I hope that helps, Trustee Storken.
It does. I just have one more question. So an instance that I'm thinking of is that property is worth, let's take a wild guess and say $3 million. It's millions of dollars. And we are selling it for a nominal fee, which then would that constitute not serving the taxpayer's interest? Because the people who bought that building are not getting any return on their investment, I guess. So that was just something that I was concerned about in the second part of that motion that seems unclear to me. I don't know if that would be something we could ask or.
Thank you, Aura. I'm going to actually just go to Carmen because she's the one who put the amendment in there as to what her intent in it was. And that might make it clearer.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say much more. I just wanted to say that in my opinion of the wording is exactly what Teresa said, the lawyer said it meant. So, and I am satisfied that it reflects my intention at the last meeting, which is to ensure that sometime in the future, if there is a sale of that property, that the profits go back to the school district rather than to the Hub Society. So it's sort of clarified for me, and I was very satisfied to hear that staff have got that legal opinion about the wording in the motion, because we just want to ensure that in the future that in the last meeting, I called it commercialization of the property, but I guess what really that means is that if there are dollars that are going to be made by someone in the future sale of that property, that those dollars go back to students in our school district through the Board of Education budget, and that the money would go back to the district or the board. And if the board no longer exists, or the district no longer exists, or something like that, that it goes back to support the public. And I don't want to get too complicated about it, but I just want to say thank you to the staff for getting that legal opinion, and I'm very satisfied with it.
Thank you, Carmen. Back here. Aura, did that kind of clear it up for you?
Yeah, for sure. I understand the intent, and I, voted for it. I appreciate that as well. I just appreciate the opportunity to ask and clarify a few things, because reading it at home by myself gives me my opinion, but it doesn't give me anyone else's. So, thanks.
I do have a question though about something else, when it's the right time.
Okay, go ahead, Carmen, your turn. I believe nobody else had their hand up ahead of you.
Okay, so I know that in the discussion of the topic at the last meeting, I tried to clarify from my thinking anyway, that I believe that the Hub Society requires for their programs the field and the building and not just the building. So I'm not sure why we would look at the possibility of subdivision now, because that would, in my opinion, lessen the ability of the Hub Society to utilize the full property and for them to have, let's say, access and to the resource of the field, the resource of the playground, the resource of the parking near the school, that sort of thing. So I'm against right now the board looking at subdividing. I thought that decision was made at the last meeting, and I didn't, I do not think that was part of the discussion at the meeting when we decided to lease the property that currently is a certain configuration. I don't want to subdivide the property, kind of like with the Hub possibly wanting to utilize that property. I suppose we could have a conversation with the Hub and say, do you need the full property? And then if they don't, proceed with the possibility of subdivision. But I feel in a way that it's against the intent of the original motion to look at any possible subdivision at this time.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. And I would just like to say, I don't remember subdivision even coming up in the conversation at the first meeting. And it was just in my thoughts were that I don't know all the programs that the Hub runs, but they do have a field and playground directly across from them, up a quarter of a block. If possible, if they don't need it and it's for good, valuable programming, then it doesn't hurt to look into the possibility. I'm not saying we have to. I'm just saying now is a good opportunity while things are being looked into to actually find out what it would cost, what would be available. Donna is next. She hasn't spoken yet.
I was going to say that as well too. I didn't hear anything about making that change to the area. Is that it was just suggested that we look at it, how those proceeds go and what are the next steps. It wasn't an actual follow this information guideline to do this. It was just to inquire about it and come back to the table about that. So that's all I wanted to mention and clarify, that that's all we were asking, not to start the actions of changing it and re-subdividing it or reissuing a change, just to find out how and what do we have to do to focus on to get that started. That's all. Thank you.
Aura. Or thank you, Donna. Sorry. Aura?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to mention that I printed off, because I do that. I print every single thing. Unfortunately, I'm not that great at reading off the computer, but I printed off every single one of the communications that we were given before the meeting. And I did read in there, and I've forgotten the woman's name. I had it jotted down earlier, but there was a woman who wrote a letter of support for the Hub. And she mentioned why we couldn't talk about subdividing it. And that, like this whole conversation, she described in her letter of support. But I would highly recommend and support Carmen's idea of just speaking with the Hub. If the board or admin, I'm not sure, could speak with them and ask them about that. Is that something they're interested in doing? We've already created a situation in which that isn't part of the equation. But if the Hub is open to it, perhaps they don't want that whole piece. Perhaps that's going to be burdensome for them. I don't know. But I would support further conversation with them just to see how that feels to them.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so on the table now, we have a motion to not start up, just not investigate and just find out the logistics of it. Rather talk to the hub first. And we are now, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor of not starting inquiry, but discussing with the hub first, please raise your hand. And I'm, oops, sorry, I'm backwards here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I will go against that. I will abstain from that. I don't see where, while we've got staff working on it, that it would hurt to even just find out, but that can be another cost another day. Thank you. So we will wait to hear till next month for any more information. Thank you. 7.9, correspondence Cooks Ferry Indian Band. The board will discuss the request from Cooks Ferry Indian Band in response to the strategic plan opportunity to provide input. I can get anybody's thoughts on that. Carmen, is your hand still up or did you want to speak? Okay. Thank you. Larry, please.
Yes, it's a question we pose to the community, our partners out there, and it's actually refreshing to get a response and indicator that they would like to have input into our strategic planning. So I would just encourage us to do the best we can in this context. Yeah, so it's really good to see this, and I'm just wondering how we're going to proceed forward with it. But I like the idea.
Thank you.
We did pose that question, so thanks.
Okay, thank you. Teresa, I'm going to come back to you for 1 second. If I can find you. Yes, Teresa. Vicky's got her hand up first, but I will. So Vicky, go ahead first. Now that I found Teresa, I can keep it.
I just wanted to say basically the same as what Larry just said. It's so refreshing to get a letter like this. I want 20 more letters like this. Yay, we want to be a part of strategic planning. I'm just really excited to be able to engage with them with that.
Thank you. And there, because it has been noted that we are looking for public input, then there's many ways that they can provide input. Maybe we can get staff to contact them and discuss with them how their input is best provided. There we go. There she's back. Provide. I'll let Teresa finish speaking to that. Thank you. I was so busy.
I was going to hide under my desk to see how that would work for you finding me. So Trustee Rumpel, just if I'm hearing you right, you would like staff to follow up with Cooks Ferry and discuss the options and ways of collecting their feedback into the strategic plan and then bring that to the board?
That would be excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I don't know, maybe is there a refresher go out to all bands, all communities, just as a, I don't know. I would like, as Vicky said, yay. I would like to see as many providing their input as possible. So, okay. Any Aura?
And just a note that it says right in their letter that they would like to have a meeting to be held with our directors and their council. So does that mean of the board, with the board?
That's what they're hoping for. Yes,
That's what they would like.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have not done that with any other or been offered, of course, obviously. So maybe once Teresa talks to them, we can find out more of their intention and discussion on that. Okay. No further questions, comments? Thank you. And oh, that comes down to me now. BCSTA AGM. Okay, now maybe if I can get Jill to just take this off the screen so that I can see everybody at once, please. Thank you. At the AGM this year, with the voting being different and online, only the chairs will be allowed to vote on the extraordinary motions and the vote for the directors. So what we've been asked to do is have a discussion around the extraordinary motions and provide me your feedback, because I will be doing the voting, as to how you would like to see each motion voted on. Now, we could either do that here today, if everybody actually read the extraordinary motions, or if you'd like to read through them and send me your email or feedback through an email as to how you feel about a particular motion, actually all motions, so that I know how to vote on behalf of our board. We will, however, be able to, they're changing it a little bit to where it's not just a yes or no, the whole board yes or no. They're going to be able to allow so that if 2 of you want to agree on it, but 4 of you don't, then we'll be able to have that split. So if I can get as much participation from everybody, will definitely make that process a whole lot easier. And it's up to you whether you want to have that conversation now or whether you want to email me your choices. Carmen?
I think that I like your idea about the emailing, and if there's you know, if you need to ask us questions from those emails, then you can probably have time to do that. So if you set a deadline that's like allows for some time before the meeting, I think that would be good. And just
okay.
I'm not, am I going to get to speak about the budget under information in the next?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I'll mention anything more there.
Okay. So, okay, good idea. How about April 12th? Have your answers to me. Aura?
So I was just going to say, how many motions are we talking about?
6 extraordinary motions. The substantive motions, everybody will be allowed to vote on their own, but only on the extraordinary motions will the chairs be allowed to vote. And on saying that, if there's all trustees will be able to amend them also. So if there's any amendments and you've already told me that you wanted me to vote yes, you can always text me or throw me a quick note and say, hey, no, I changed my mind, and then I can change it then too.
So I'm embarrassed to admit I haven't even looked at them. I didn't even know there was 6, and I certainly will. I just wonder, for me anyway, often the wisdom from people who know more about it is helpful for me, because I may read the motion and not actually understand it, or, you know, vote without knowing what I'm voting for. So, you know, I'd like a chance, I guess, to hear why we would vote one way or another, because I may not have a clue about it.
And that was going to be the third option, is if you wanted to have another Zoom meeting to where we could just strictly discuss those motions, if everybody's up for that. So
I like that idea.
I do too.
Carmen and Larry, how do you feel about another meeting?
Well, I think another meeting is excellent, because same for me, I like to hear what everybody else is thinking. And I just have a question. What's happening with the elections for the board of directors? Like, how is that also being done through the chairs?
Yes. And we'll be discussing that at a further meeting. So, but it will be done the exact same way. Donna, did you have a preference? Would you like another meeting, or?
I'd like another meeting, as well as I'd like to make a suggestion too, because I know the 6 motions, are they coming from the region or is it the whole?
Actually, these 6 motions, most of them are coming from the board of directors. And I even have them here. me.
Okay, because I know we have our meeting in the regional and the motions are coming up from there. They're not exactly discussed at length at the meeting there, and I was wondering if we could possibly do that. And then there at the regional, then they are then supported from the regional moving forward. And then there's no question, because when we get to this time now, it's almost like kicking the can again in regards to that. This should have been already approved by our region and districts so that we can move forward. And then if it's everybody in BC, then that's where the strongest support is for the motion.
So out of these extraordinary motions, and that's all we'll be discussing at our extra meeting, will be the extraordinary motions. Those are all coming from the Board of Directors of BCSTA. And on the substantive motions, which is where you're more talking about, those you'll be able to vote on yourself at the AGM. You can choose whatever, and then you'll be able to hear and listen to the pros and cons and the whole bit. But you'll be able to make amendments and vote there on your own.
I agree
Larry?
in the meeting as well too.
Okay. That sounds good then. Okay.
Better chance of getting feedback.
Yeah. Perfect. So can we set up a meeting now, or because that pretty much we have to have it before the 14th. So maybe staff can just ship out us a date when they're available? Or does anybody want to throw out a date? I'm good for most
Like
of them.
just send out a survey monkey poll
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, as always, I work until 4. It's easiest for me if it can be after work at 4 or later, but if not, I can try and jiggle things around.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, staff, please. Thank you. And I just want to throw another quick blurb in on that. And it has nothing to do with the AGM. It actually has to do with the IEC committee that I've been sitting on. I just had my last meeting with them. I ran my 3-year term, and I will say they are moving so forward that it's getting very exciting, and you guys will all be really, really excited within the next, not this AGM, next AGM. There's a big surprise coming. So, yeah. So, anyway, okay, now I'll finish, carry on with the meeting. Sorry. Okay, information. Report from Superintendent of Schools. Did anybody have any? Teresa?
7-Eleven,
Oh,
Massachusetts.
7-Eleven, thank you. I'm so excited on that one. So on March 31st, there was the board chair's call that Dr. Rika Gustafson was in on. And she's such a lovely lady. She is with the BC CDC and our liaison for education. And we were discussing the mask usage of the new mandate, grades 4 and up, the use of masks. And what Dr. Gustafson would like us to do is discuss as a board whether we feel that this should be a total provincial mandate, or in some districts, regions, there is actually no COVID exposures at all. So she's wondering whether there's any appetite to have this go from a provincial-wide mandate to a regional health mandate, to where if it's a health region that has had little to no exposures, maybe they don't need to. This is all, of course, coming after the April 19th update. Whether maybe that district or that region would not have to wear masks from grade 4 to grade 7. So I'm just throwing it out there for you, thinking, however, that we are in Interior Health. So it's all districts within Interior Health that we would be following. So it's not just up to us individually. Okay, Larry, thank you.
Yeah, just my comment is watching the news, and it seems like the new variants are having an effect on the younger populations, and even the consideration that the younger populations are possibly carriers of it now too as well. So I would just like to us to proceed in a cautious manner if we're going to be opening up schools more so.
So would you rather see it as a provincial mandate or as a regional, go by region?
My personal opinion is provincial.
Okay, thank you. To pull everybody here. So Vicky's hands up first, and or is there anyway?
I prefer the regional perspective on it, and of course, no matter what, we take our information and we do the restrictions according to the health officer. So whatever they think is safe for our region, that is what I would support. And I mean, masks is just one small piece of it. I've always thought regional would be so much more applicable and would reflect actual needs of the community, whether it be more or less restrictions and barriers in place.
Yep, thank you. And as saying that, I'm not arguing against you, just so that you realize that I'm going to use SD73, who's had, she went over there, has had a lot of exposures. We would be lumped in with them too. So it would be the region, right? So just keeping that in mind. Aura?
Yeah, I'm not sure, except that I know every time we change the rules, it just completely causes anxiety in people, and it's worse than having a rule that perhaps isn't 100% accurate or right. It's every time we try to do something different, it almost gives people not reason, but people start breaking rules because it's almost like they don't know which rules to follow. So I prefer like let's do it all together and not keep changing it. So
provincial?
I mean, I understand what Vicky said, and I agree too. I don't know what the best answer is. I just know that if we continue to keep changing the rules, I don't know. I don't know which way.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll come back to you at the end. How's that? Maybe
Okay.
by then you can think about it. Carmen.
I agree with Larry, and I think of also Kamloops where there's been schools impacted. I'm grateful that our district hasn't been impacted, but you know, I'm out in shopping in, around here in Kamloops. The young children are wearing masks in stores, and I think that I think I do agree that it's important for everyone to be under the same umbrella, if you know what I mean. I don't want, I don't agree with the regional regionalization unless it's district by district, because maybe in our district, the public here or the parents here or the teachers here would think that it's not required or shouldn't be required. But when we're lumped in with communities and schools that have had trouble with it, I would hate to be erring on like the wrong side regarding the spread of this disease, because we really do not want people to catch it. And if it makes schools safer to have this mask mandate, then I think we need to have the mask mandate for 4 to 7.
Thank you. And in saying that too, it just reminded me that Merritt has also, Smokeamine 58, they've also had a lot of exposure notices too. So in our region, there is a lot anyway. So Donna.
Thank you. I have a little more input in regards to this and being on the emergency calls every Tuesday and with the Intlaka'am Health Society every second Thursday, that I've had a little more knowledge of the exposures. And basically it's a corridor and it goes from the coast down Vancouver all the way up to Kamloops and just beyond Kamloops. And that's a major corridor where the higher cases are registered at. And for me, I would go by region because those are the heavily impacted areas where cases are high. Uh, and like the newest question that I have to bring in is that the ones that are getting vaccinated now with the new antivirus is that, or the vaccine is that, you know, it's almost sounding like chicken pox. You'll get the chicken pox shot and you'll develop chicken pox, but it's not going to be as bad. And this is one of those situations where it's been asked of me to find out. I haven't got the answer yet, but whether or not the new vaccines allow you to have the COVID limited amount of it, and then you're done. You've developed the immunity system for it after. So that's the question that I need to bring forward and find the answer on. And it is a good question in regards to that, because I've heard people have the vaccine and then get sick later, but they're being told, well, you must have been exposed to somebody that had the COVID. So, you know, it's almost a head game in regards to that. But to me, it's more along this district's area and the corridor that it showed on the map, and it showed on global TV as well, to the news, the corridor where it comes up the valley and through into Kamloops and through Merritt, and just on the verges of that where this is reached out to. So
Thank you,
I would
Donna. And
say
on
that.
saying that, I'm just going to tell you, that question was raised to Dr. Rika regarding the vaccine and whether you're totally immune to it. And no, you're not. You can still get it, and it will be after, like you've had it won't be because you had it already or anything, but you can still pick it up and you can be a carrier. You might not even notice it because you've been vaccinated, but you can still be a carrier. So that's just from Dr. Rika, what she said. So, and I'll tell you, just so you don't keep you in suspense, I'm myself preferring provincial because I'm not sure if you're raising your hand, Teresa, that's okay. I do believe that a lot of it is carried through, as Donna said, it's the corridor, but it does span out into other communities. And although, like even Northern Health, they have some big outbreaks in some areas. So I do believe it's a provincial wide thing. I also believe that there are some work groups that will definitely fight removing masks from any child. So I think personally, I would also be going for the provincial realization. So that actually, right now we're sitting at 2-3. And Aura, did you come to any conclusion?
Sure, you're going to make me answer, so I'm going to say provincial.
Okay. Thank you. So that's what I can feedback, is that we would prefer to stay provincial. Okay, thank you. And I believe that's it for me now. So on to information items. 8.1, report from Superintendent of Schools. You have it in your agenda. So is there any questions towards Teresa on any of them? Aura? Thank you.
Yeah, so I was super excited and I saw some chatter about this on Facebook. So I just wanted to make sure I have my facts straight, but I think it's the George Murray Elementary School that had the project. And in here it says Cayush.
Both schools had the project, and the pictures are only from Cayush.
Okay. And then I also wanted to add on here that I read that they actually won the Canadian Kindness Leaders Project. And that got them some recognition as well as some great prizes. It looks like some leadership materials and some funding for some more projects and a little bit of money to have a bit of a celebration for winning. So I was super pumped for them. It's great.
Thanks for sharing that, Aura.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have anything for Superintendent Downs? No. Thank you. I thought it was an excellent report too. Thank BCSTA Provincial Council report and budget. Can you lump it all into one? I can lump it all into one, Carmen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make it short.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is how important it is for trustees that are going to attend the AGM online to do a practice session. The voting and the meeting participation is much, much different and more complex than a regular Zoom meeting. So I just can't emphasize that more. You might find yourself so confused or so kind of challenged by the process of the AGM. If you don't do a training session, you might not be really get your votes in, and it will be very upsetting for you.
Carmen,
yes.
can I just interrupt just on that topic? It's also really, really helpful if you have two devices. If you can even use your phone for voting and your computer for the rest of the AGM, but it's really going to be helpful if you have two devices.
Well,
sorry, Carmen.
I'll just say that that is true, but the device that you use for the voting needs to be a computer because they have a very rigorous program that they're running for the voting processes for making amendments and getting your amendments in. All of the information I have from BCST about provincial council meetings says that you cannot access a meeting from a phone. So I'm not sure that's true, but
they must have changed it because they were telling us that you could do it from a phone. So
okay, good.
But
all
I'm
right.
sure it will be easier from a computer.
It might be different for provincial council, but anyway, okay, I'll just quickly go through my points here. I felt sorry that I had missed my BCSTA provincial council report at the last meeting due to some my difficulties the day of the meeting, the last meeting. I just wanted to clarify regarding the BCSTA budget a few items. So I'm just talking right now about the upcoming provincial council meeting. The fact that the only agenda item other than receiving reports from committees and from the board of directors is the adoption of the budget for BCSTA. All of the budget for BCSTA for the coming year is built around live meetings. So the budget is built around trustees attending academy, trustees attending in AGM next year. All increases to the budget, which is only a total of about $44,000, are being paid from BCSTA surplus. The Gold Trail amount of increase is $224.83. This budget is very conservative and very cognizant of the fact that trustees across BC do not want money being spent on their own processes for BCSTA, but they want as much money spent on students as possible overall in the whole system. The increase is based on, as usual, the Vancouver cost of living index, CPI, and that is because BCSTA offices are located in Vancouver and most of the costs are staff in the office cost, and those sorts of things. For AGM 2022, so in a year, there's an increase in cost of $11,000. There's an increase in the budget for an increase to the stipend that the president of BCSTA gets based on a comparative study of other associations and finding that the board of directors positions, including the vice president and president, the only position that didn't reflect the similar balance to other organizations in BC was the president's position. So that's why that's being recommended. Legal cost increase of 8,000. That's because sometimes BCSDA has questions from boards and they require outside legal advice for that, not just our in-house legal. Depreciation of equipment, a small amount, 3,000. And then an increase to BCSDA staff salaries based on the teacher union contract, provincial union contract is 24,000. Total increases in the budget, 71,000, and they're all offset. Boards of education will not see any actual change to the amount they pay because it's all offset by previous past surpluses that BCSTA has had. So I think that's pretty much all I need to get into regarding the budget. And I personally don't feel that there's anything that needs to be changed in the budget at this time. So I will, as your representatives, unless I hear something different from you today, right now, probably totally vote in favor of it. So any feedback would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Does anybody have any feedback or anything for Carmen? To tell her no, 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 or you know. Looks good. Seems like you have a good handle on it there. Thank you, Carmen.
You're welcome.
Okay. And info pack. Is there any questions coming from info pack? Vicki.
I just wanted to follow up regarding the vaping letter. Just wanted to make sure that it hadn't gotten forgotten from the last meeting. We were going to write letters to councils. Do we know what's happening with it?
I'm sorry, I was waiting for Teresa to answer. Okay.
Yes, the letters have been written. My apologies if they weren't in info pack. We'll make sure they are updated. Info pack's updated.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And on saying that, I just wanted I'm not sure if you've all heard or not, going back to BCSTA, that Mike Roberts is retiring. He will be done as of, I believe, July 31st. If there's a replacement, he said he will stay on until they find somebody. So. Okay, so I would like to, if no further questions, I would like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Vicki's still got her hand up, so is she making that motion? Okay, thank you, Vicki. And question period. If anybody from the participants list has a question.
I think it's just us here on the call. We haven't seen anything in chat, so I think we're good to go.
Okay, I see that there is 4 attendees, but I don't see any questions being asked. So. Okay, on seeing that, thank you everyone, and we will take a 5-minute break and come back for